Eagles. Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Tuesday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, John McMullen, the number one Eagles beat reporter in town. Thanks for being here, everybody, on this Tuesday morning. Johnny Mac, how you doing on this Tuesday, brother?
Doing well. Got some news yesterday.
Yeah.
Football 24/7 season. That's what I'm going to start calling it, business season in the NFL. For now, it already happened once, and it came back, so it could happen again. But for now, looks like the Eagles are planning to move on from Darius Slay. But I wouldn't put a period on that just yet.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm not putting a period on that just yet. We'll see what they end up doing there. John, what's your first thoughts on that, man? You talk about the ramifications, I think, of losing a player. I mean, he was still playing at such a high level. I know he was in and out of the lineup, but man, when he was on the field, man, he was a damn good player still to the end of his time here in Philadelphia. And now you look at, you're trying to maintain what you built last year in the number one overall defense. What's the best solution to that? I said yesterday, John, if the number's right and if the sides can agree, I think Slay should be back. I think it's a better alternative than going with Isaiah Rodgers and Kelee Ringo battling it out. But I understand people want to get younger. How do you see this now with Slay, right as of now, out of the lineup?
Well, you look at it both ways, because I agree with you. If they can get him to agree to an $8 million, $10 million deal, somewhere in that range, I think the best way to go forward for 1 year is Darius Slay, because it's very unlikely that a re-signed Isaiah Rodgers or Kelee Ringo in his first year starting is going to play similar to what he did last year. Now, the problem with that is at some point, the old adage, Father Time is unbeaten, is correct. So, I mean, he's 34. He's going to be 35 on New Year's Day, 2026.
Right.
At some point, it's coming. And when does that happen? So that's where the Eagles, that's a difficult decision for the Eagles. It has been, but he played so well last year. I think if you can get him on a cost-effective deal, you run it back for one more season. That's how I kind of look at it. But if not, they have plenty of in-house options. I don't think it's going to be difficult to re-sign Isaiah Rodgers for a couple reasons. One, people just don't think he's an outside corner as a starter because of the size deficiencies he has around the league. So now, PFF, which is generally the best when it comes to contract projections, it's got him at 1 year and $3 million. I can't believe he can't get a better deal than that, but it tells you kind of the realm he's in. They're going to be able to get him if they want him back. And then, Kelee Ringo, which is the guy they would want, in a best case scenario, that's the guy they want to seize the job. He's got everything you need to play outside cornerback in the NFL. 6'2", he's physical, 207 to 210 pounds, somewhere in that range. Runs a 4.39, whatever it was, at that size. Got the tremendous length. Everything you could possibly want if you're building an outside cornerback in a lab. Kelee Ringo's got it. Does he have the football IQ? Does he have the savviness? We haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. No, we haven't.
Vic Fangio trusted Isaiah Rodgers last year as the third cornerback. Now, you can say, well, he's younger and needs some spirits. Vic had no problem trusting Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean.
That's what I'm saying, John. That's why I said this yesterday. I'm like, if I believe Vic Fangio and the way he trusted all the other guys, then I'd have to say Kelee Ringo wasn't ready yet, based on how Vic Fangio handled every other young player on the roster.
Yeah, and that's fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. People adjust at different levels, and it's very rare that corners excel to the point Mitchell and DeJean did as rookies. That's the outlier, not Ringo.
Yeah, that's true.
There's nothing wrong with developing slowly, and he's got another offseason, another spring, another summer to get better. And if Slay doesn't come back, hopefully he wins the job from the Eagles' perspective. And also throw it, nobody's brought up Eli Ricks to my knowledge but me. They've kept him around for 2 years.
Right.
Not quite as physical, but he's got the same attributes. Not quite as fast, but
Now,
he's
he did.
6'2".
Rex did play a little bit like 2 years ago, right? He didn't play it all
As a
last year.
rookie, he played a little bit
Yeah,
for us, but
plays
he
it a little
but he
bit.
was out of position. That was the year they used like 9 slot cornerback.
Yeah, right.
He's not a slot guy. He's 6'2". Now the problem is he's not nearly as physical as Ringo. He's not as fast, but he's got natural cover ability, especially in this defense, which is going to play a lot of zone, a lot of corners, a lot of cover 3. He's got good ball skills, so he'll be in the mix too. By no means do I think he would be the favorite, but I do think people should bring up his name a little bit more than they probably do. And I think they have so many in-house options, they don't have to look out of house for another corner. But so certainly not in free agency. In the draft, I've mentioned the Morrison kid from Notre Dame simply because he's going to fall because of injuries, and he's really good. And
if he's there at 64, I would consider him.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And that type of situation, I might take a shot on him just because of the value at that point, but it's unlikely. And it would be 95% it would be in-house. And the part that incenses people, boy, I wrote on Twitter that the Eagles scouted Cooper DeJean as an outside corner because he scouted Cooper DeJean as an outside corner. And then as you boil it down to the roster, you hand the players to the coaches, and the coaches utilize them the best way. It's a big puzzle. It's a big piece. There's injuries involved. And obviously Cooper excelled in the slot. All I'm trying to say is the organization believes he can play outside corner. Like, there's no doubts.
Right. Doesn't mean they're going to move him right now, but that's how they evaluated him.
Yeah. There's a lot of doubts outside because all the stupid stuff and people who don't realize how athletic Cooper DeJean is, and he can't do this and he can't do that. Yeah, he can. And at some point the business aspect comes into it, and the reality of outside corners get paid more than inside corners. That comes into it. And the bottom line is, if Vic comes back last year, and it might be somebody you don't even think about, like Perry Nickerson, who's a veteran corner, and somebody can play inside. Right. And he's better inside. The group of him inside and Cooper outside is better than Caley outside. And, is it likely? No. But you got to throw it in the mix because he can do it. And if you're talking about today and there's no Darius Slay, the second best outside cornerback on the Philadelphia Eagles is Cooper DeJean. And you got some people in that building would argue he's the best. And I know one high-profile guy who told me he's the best.
Yeah. People think highly of him, man.
So, yeah, don't get all your what in a bunch.
Hey, I want Cooper DeJean on the outside. I think he's going to be lights out down there. I just understand this is a little bit of more of a complex issue where, because they have options in different areas, where are they going to do? It might be easier for this year to keep Cooper in the slot. But John, here's the other thing. And I think Dirty Air brings up the comment I'm about to say. If you're going to move him, shouldn't it be now? I mean, if he doesn't move out there this season, is he going to get stuck out there? Think Landon Dickerson, put him at guard, boom, he gets so good they don't move. Is that a possibility with Cooper DeJean?
Yeah,
if you're going to move him, wouldn't you want it to be sooner than later?
It is a possibility. And, it's one of the reasons the Eagles might have decided to pull the trigger and move on, because this is what they drafted the kid to play.
Right.
So just put it in the back of your minds. Now, again, it's hard to find, as you saw the year prior, it's hard to find cornerbacks. But I get so many comments. It's harder to find a nickel corner than an outside corner. You guys have been spoiled, man. Nobody can find outside. Everybody's looking for outside corners in this league. Everybody. they're looking for slot corners too. They're looking for corners.
Right, corners. Yeah.
But outside corner is more important than inside corner in the NFL still. You know, when you see somebody excel and then you use the outlier, well, look how important Cooper DeJean was. Best cornerback in football, according to PFF. Yeah, he's the outlier. He's really good.
Right.
You don't have to worry about Cooper. Whether he's outside, inside, you don't have to worry about it.
Right. But I guess then because he is the outlier, that would change the Eagles' approach because they're the ones with the outlier, right? I mean, if you have Cooper DeJean and he is the outlier.
Yeah, and they
that
have
might
to make
you
the
balk at moving him.
decision. They have
Right.
to make the decision, and that will come down. And that's why I say, believe me, the hope is that Keely Ringo can take off. And then everything is copacetic. And then down the road, you got to deal with maybe setting the market, and there could be, but the Eagles have proven that, you know, they'll pay good players if they believe in good players. So I'm not too concerned about that. But the assumption that, oh, you just throw Rodgers out there, oh, you just throw Ringo out there and they're going to be fine at outside corner. Believe me, NFL teams are excited about not having to face Darius Slay on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
The way he was playing last year. And you saw it a little bit because Rodgers played very well in limited snaps when he had to play when Slay was banged up, when Mitchell was banged up late. He played very well. But you could see at times, you know, a lot of times they couldn't take advantage of it, but they tried to take advantage of it. And if he's out there 100% of the time, that's what they're going to be game planning for. Remember, you come into a game and you're game planning for that Eagles #1 defense, and it's Slay and Mitchell, and you're like, oh, man, what are we going to do with, you know, this group's playing so well. All the big zone coverages, all that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden in game, Slay gets banged up. He's got to come out and Rodgers comes on. Well, if Tom Brady's out there, yeah, he's going to probably say, all right, let's go pick on him. Most teams aren't that adept.
Right.
But if they're coming into the week, like I can tell you right now, if Slay doesn't come back and it is Ringo or Rodgers, that's going to be circled from day one. That's assuming Zach Bond is back, assuming they've solidified the defensive front, because that's a foundational principle. So I assume whether they lose Josh Sweat and Milton Williams or get somebody else, they're going to solidify that. That's going to be the #1 thing they circle, the opposition. Or we're going after this guy.
Yeah.
Still a very good defense, but you know, it's not Darius Slay out there.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're no longer climbing the mountain. I guess you are in the new year, but you got to the mountaintop. Now, how do you sustain having the #1 overall? Sometimes that's harder, John, than getting there. You know, they have the #1 defense, and how do you keep it? And with Slay out the door, you know, that's your first starter lost on this defense, and there's many others, obviously, right now that are lurking that could be lost as well. So, I like bringing Slay back. What do you think that number would be? You mentioned 8 to 10. I said 8 million. I like 8 million, but you know, John, we talk about trading for a guy like Myles Garrett. That's where I think if you're going to make that move, you're probably not going to pay Slay. At least that's how I see it, because you're just going to have to pay Myles Garrett a bunch of money. You still have big contracts coming up in the future. You know, I don't know. You think they would get Slay and go for Garrett, or what kind of money you think Slay would command? And then what are the circumstances you think that they would be willing to go to that number?
Well, I think at this point, it's very similar to Baltimore in 2023 when Slay was basically out the door. And then Dom convinced him to come back. I think it's very similar to that, but the difference is the Eagles aren't paying him big money anymore. And by that, I you know, actually 14 million is not even that big for an outside corner. But again, his age, it factors into it. And I mentioned Stephon Gilmore because that's that's a guy who's sort of ahead of Slay from the standpoint of, you know, his career, former defensive player of the year, bunch of all pros. And he's continuing to play at a satisfactory level at, you know, whatever he is. He's basically the same age.
He's 30. He was 34 last year. He'll be 34 this upcoming year. Yep. So he turns 35 in September.
Yeah. And he, you know, he's been on this sort of treadmill. I think it was Indianapolis. I think it was Carolina, Indianapolis, Dallas, Minnesota. Bang, 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 bang. Like 1 year,
right?
8 million. And he's played at a high level in all those places, but nobody wants him back because the reality is you want to get younger at that particular position. You want to, the old adage, you give up on a player a year early than a year late.
Right.
And he keeps playing well. It'll probably sign somewhere else this year for 8-10 million.
He signed last year, 1 year, 7 mil, fully 7 million guaranteed, 3.5 signing bonus. So
and he played pretty well.
Yeah. And here's the thing about the getting younger thing, John. I get that point, but the reason I think that I make a change, or I'm willing to make a different move here, is because you did get younger. You spent your first 2 draft picks last year on cornerbacks, and both of them to this point have panned out. So you got younger. You know, it's not like you don't have a contingency or you don't have younger players in the room for the future. You got younger and they were great. Now you need to sustain the number 1 overall defense. I think you're in a different situation versus if Slay was your only option and you didn't have younger guys in the room. Yeah, you might be like, all right, it's time to get younger. We need to draft a cornerback. We need to do some things at that position. I think they already checked the box of getting younger.
Yeah, well, and also they're really good. They're a legitimate Super Bowl contender.
Yeah.
So I mean, the window is open. I think everybody knows that. So, you know, if you look at really, Carolina in 2021 wasn't a contender. Indianapolis in 2020 wasn't a real contender. Dallas in 2023 thought they could be a contender. That would be the one. And even Minnesota, which turned out to be a contender. Nobody thought they were before the season. Everybody had them in last place. The Eagles are the best team in football. And, you know, if they started up again right now with the same group, they'd be one of the favorites to go to the Super Bowl. Obviously, that's not going to happen, but you get my point. They're a lot closer to where 1 year is meaningful than maybe other places. So, you know, if Slay is willing, and part of it is also, who is somebody out there? Is Detroit going to pay him $14 million? You know, he said on his podcast he'd like to end his career either with the Eagles or the Lions. I can't imagine that contract is out there.
I can't imagine, especially in Detroit. I mean, they're going to be in the same boat where they got so many good players, so many people to pay. I don't see that for them either. Now, I don't know what their cap situation is over there, but I don't see that. I mean, and then the other thing is, John, how much is the human element involved in this? I mean, you know, he says he's got 1 year left. Now, I don't know what Slay's personal life is. I don't know if his family lives here. I don't know if his wife lives here. I'm not sure what it all looks like, and I'm not going to project what it is, but does that come into it, you think? 1 year? Do I want to move to a new city for 1 year, or I can stay where I am? You know, what do the taxes look like in a different place versus what they look like where I am now? You know what I mean? All those things factor in. I wonder how much the human element comes in as well, where Slay might just be like, do I want to play somewhere else, or should I take a pay cut to play in Philly?
Well, you know, and that's, I don't know if it's up to him. And he doesn't, you know, he's a Texas guy. So, you know, obviously taxes play into that. But, you know, these guys make enough money to where they can live where they want in the off season and, you know, come back and during the season. But at least players that have made the money he's made for so many years. So from that standpoint, my only point is I don't think, people are saying it. I've seen a lot of people phrase it that he's going to have to take a much lesser salary this time around, which is correct. And maybe he'll balk at that. Well, if he's balking at that, then he's not playing next season. That's kind of what I'm saying. I don't think the 14 million, 15, 16 million contract is out there for him.
Right.
And I think that's part of the strategy of the Eagles announcing it, saying we're gonna release you post, and sort of, I don't know if they're gonna give him permission, but I assume they're gonna give him permission if he's gonna be released to have his agents look around and see what he can get. And I think it's going to be a situation like Brandon, only a cornerback. If he wants to come back 1 year, in the case of Brandon, whatever it was, lesser fives, with some incentives. If he wants to come back at 1 year, 8 million, come back, win another one.
Yeah.
And I from the standpoint of, taking lesser money, that's going to be his reality if he wants to play this season, whether it's in Philadelphia or another city, because I can't imagine any situation where any team is going to pay a 34-year-old corner, even one as accomplished as Darius Slay, $14 million. And I point to Stephon Gilmore, who all due respect is actually more accomplished from a career standpoint, as the perfect example. There's literally an exact example. That contract is not going to be out there anymore.
Going to be interesting to see what they do there. I mean, you talk about Isaiah Rodgers, John. He's a free agent. I know that you said the value is not too high right now in the open market, but I feel like with the Super Bowl, and he did make a play in the Super Bowl, maybe some stupid team will come in and give him $4 or $5 million at least. What do you think he's going to get on the open market? And do you anticipate he will be back, especially if they don't want Slay back?
Yeah, I definitely think he'll be back if Slay's not back. I don't even concern myself with that one, because I don't think it's going to be cost a ton of money. As I mentioned, generally the best when it comes to contract projections is Pro Football Focus, and they had him at 1 year and $3 million, which I kind of I went, boy, that's it. But if you think about it, he's still got the gambling stuff over his head.
Yeah.
He's got the deficiencies that, he's 5'10", 100, and he ain't 5'10", by the way. That's what he's listed at. 176 pounds, and he ain't 176 pounds.
And he's smaller than that?
Yeah.
Ooh, 5'10", that's short. I'm taller than that.
Well, that's part of the reason why everyone said, well, he should be in the slot. He should be in the slot.
Right,
he should be in the slot.
Smaller dude.
However, he's not comfortable in the slot. He's proven himself outside in limited snaps, both in Indianapolis and Philadelphia. He's played very well. He deserves credit. But the reality is, from a contract standpoint, that's why it's so low. That's why it's so low. And I don't think they're going to be way off. Could he get 1 year, $4 million? Could he get 2 years, $6 million? Sure. But the Eagles can do that. And he's going to be very loyal to the Eagles, because he's very, he was very appreciative of them taking a chance on him. Nobody else would.
Right.
When he was suspended, everybody said, well, we'll deal with that when he gets reinstated. The Eagles said, no, we'll sign you. You'll wait your year, and then we'll bring you. So he's very appreciative.
He was a part of the team, too. He wasn't like a bottom roster guy that never saw. I mean, he was a part of the Super Bowl run for sure.
Oh, he's a good player last year. Darn it. And if it wasn't for the size, and it wasn't for the suspension, you'd probably be talking about a guy who's going to get pretty substantial deal. Not top of the market, but 2 years, 10, 12, something like that. But those are the reasons why it's not going to be difficult to re-sign Isaiah Rodgers.
We'll see what they end up doing there. Johnny Mac, one other question that came from this Darius Slay release that I think is worth talking about on the show. I saw a couple comments on the show about it already. Why is James Bradberry still on the roster, but Darius Slay is not? Like, what are they waiting for with James Bradberry? You would assume that the relationship has come to an end. Is there a reason they're holding on and not releasing him? Can you give us a little insight on that?
Well, pre-June 1st is, I'm looking up Bradberry. They still would lose.
Didn't they designate Slay as post June 1?
Yeah, but you can only do that twice.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that there was limits on that.
Yeah. So you can't just do a bunch of stuff post June 1st. So right now, if they cut them right now, it's 5.6 million. A little bit more than that. Let me see. That's actually, I'm looking at a trade. They're not going to trade him. Yeah, but same thing. 5.618 million. They would lose in cap space. Where if they wait till after June 1st, they get 2.1 million because they can spread it out over 2 years.
Okay. I didn't know that there was limits on that. So I was like looking at it like, well, if you're going to release Slay, why not just release Bradberry too?
You got to be very judicious with those post June 1st moves. So that's the reason. I just told them to post June 1st.
Yeah, I heard Bradberry talking at the end of the year about potentially, being a coach. I don't know the guy, but I love that for him. I think I could so picture that for him. I think that'd be a great role for him. I don't know if he would do it here or if he would move on and go somewhere else or if he's even going to retire this year, but I heard him talking about that. So pretty good stuff.
Yeah, I asked him about that. He because when we were down at the Super Bowl, a couple of the coaches, Roy Anderson and Christian Parker, talked about how helpful he was to Quinion and Cooper and behind the scenes. And so I asked him about that. And he said but he wants to play. He still thinks he's got something left. So that's for a couple years down the road. And obviously he's not going to be here.
Yeah, we'll see what they end up doing there with James Bradberry. And you just brought up an interesting point about the teaching in the locker room. John, is it that you draft 2 rookie cornerbacks, and with your first 2 picks, Quinion Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, they both talk about how much Slay, and I guess you could throw Bradberry in there too, Slay and Bradberry have helped them as veteran corners and giving them guidance, and vice versa. Slay is also mentioned helping those guys out, and both of them have an incredible season. And that's one of the things that I wonder if, do you want Slay in the room again? I mean, you already got Younger. He did such a good job. Now, I'm not saying it's all on Slay. Obviously, those guys played well. But is it a coincidence that both of them played as well as they did, with getting guidance from Slay? I don't think that's a coincidence. Maybe you see it otherwise, but I think that's another reason to potentially bring Slay back.
No, I don't think it's a coincidence. And, his leadership is one of the underreported things, I think, for whatever reason, because of his personality, I guess. People that don't know him don't realize, even no matter how many times Nick will say it or teammates will say it, or 3-time team captain, and this is not I'm going to give it to my best players. The players vote on that. He's a great teammate, and he's a rare teammate from the standpoint, as I said, because of how he grew up. I mentioned this yesterday on the show. He constantly talks about when he got drafted in Detroit, the older players there taking him under his wing and teaching him, and they didn't have to do that because, again, it's kind of counterintuitive to, hey, we drafted a guy 36th overall to take your job and go help him take your job. It's kind of counterintuitive. But because it happened to Slay, he's always felt a responsibility that he should do it for younger players, and he does it for younger players. And yeah, that's not bull crap. I mean, Quinion and Cooper have a lot of respect for Darius Slay. Right. And it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world from that standpoint, the leadership standpoint, because if he is here, he's going to get voted a team captain again. I guarantee you that.
I value that. I know not everybody does. I know everybody loves getting younger, but I mean, you have a young team right now. I value some older guys in the room that can be veteran leaders. I think it's important. I think it's helpful.
Yeah, it's going to be tough to replace him from that standpoint. Not that it's the most important part of it, but it is a part of it. And yeah, everybody loves the guy. And I saw a great quote. I forget. I think Andrew, our buddy Andrew DeCecco, put it up from Christian Parker. He said, you know, when your best players are your best people, basically,
Right.
that leads to some good things. And that's what he said about Slay.
Yeah, and he also, I saw, I don't know if it was Andrew DeCecco who put up the other clip as well, but I saw another clip floating around. I think it was Elliott Shore Parks of Christian Parker when he asked about the most impressive young corner in the room, and he said Keely Ringo by a mile. I don't know if that was the exact question, but something along those lines. And he mentioned Keely Ringo, so maybe they're high on Keely Ringo. I don't know. The only thing that concerned me with Keely was all these young guys got a chance at some point in the year last year in Vic's defense to get on the field, even if it wasn't full-time role. I mean, Jalix Hunt got on the field. Trotter was on the field. All these young guys found their way onto the field. Keely Ringo was the one guy that he really didn't find his way onto the field. Now, maybe it's because there was no spot for him, but
yeah, that was, you know, well, but besides Quinyon and Cooper, who earned the jobs, and in the case of Quinyon in training camp, in the case of Cooper after coming back from the injury, and that was a big move, week 5. To put Cooper in there. You know, Jalix Hunt wasn't playing. He played because of injuries. That's why he got his opportunity, and he excelled with it. But that's why he got his. Even Nolan Smith wasn't playing that much, and only got an opportunity due to injuries.
right.
So that luckily, you had some in-game injuries, but luckily not significant. When the case of Slay and Quinyon Mitchell got hurt late in the playoffs, the one game, but was able to come back. And, you know, so I don't hold that against him. But, you know, Rodgers played more than he did. And that you can look at and say, but, you know, from Christian's standpoint, what he's talking about is his physical gifts, because they are enamored with his physical gifts, and they should be. Because when I say that, he is like what we just went through, and we're going to have Devin Jackson from the Inquirer on in week hour 2, talking about the draft. And we just went through the whole combine where that's what everything is about. You want this trait. You want this trait to play this position. He has every single physical trait you need to play outside corner in the NFL. I mean, to the point, if you were going to build an outside corner in a lab, he might come out looking like Keely Ringo.
Right.
Just long, big, physical, fast. Now, can he play the position at a high level? That remains to be seen. But I remember talking to AJ when he was a rookie. He's like, whoa, this dude. Because from a physical standpoint, he's not going to fail. You know, if he fails, it's because, you know, complicated coverages,
right?
You know, communication, things like that. But he's, and that's why I say that's what they want to happen. Keely Ringo taking that job. That's what they want to happen.
Right.
Doesn't mean it's going to happen. And he did play 129 defensive snaps last year. So he did get out there a little bit.
Okay.
And he was maybe their best special teams player. And that's meaningful. Vic mentioned that at one point late in the season. It's like, I'll tell you what, when good defensive players, you never see good defensive players who were bad on special teams early in his career, is what he said. You never see it. He's really good on special teams. So that's a positive.
Yeah, interesting stuff there. We'll get a couple super chats. John, last question on this topic. A lot of people mentioning, you know, Malachi Starks and Nick Emenwari and all of these potential secondary guys in the draft that are probably going first round or second round, do you anticipate the Eagles to use another early pick on a secondary player? I've almost ruled that out completely because I just don't see him using it again, but maybe they could. Do you think that's a possibility to go down that road? I know Daniel Jeremiah mocked Malachi Starks. It's early, so it doesn't mean that much, but he did mock Malachi Starks to the Eagles in one of his mocks. And you know how that goes, John. Everybody starts loving it. And Nick Emenwari, I guess, had a crazy combine performance over the weekend. So a lot of people are high on him. Is that an option?
I think he's no.
I don't think so either.
No. That specific player probably, he was so impressive that sort of like Stewart up front. He's probably out of the range. No, I don't think so. Again, I think they're going to trade down. I think there's going to be a targeted trade down. I think defensive front. I think tight ends. They're very deep drafts at defensive front, tight end as well. Now, if the perfect storm hits, you never say never. I mentioned Morrison later. If Starks falls to like 40, who knows? Then the value becomes better. But, and I'm just this Cooper stuff is driving me insane. And I'm not even going to bring up the person, but I got something on Twitter because this is when everybody is on the same page as a fan, it should scare the shit out of you. In this NFL age, a slot corner is of higher value. That is a dumb statement. Stop saying it. I'm speaking to fans. If that's the case, they would pay slot corners more than outside corners. If that's the case, Cooper DeJean would be an all-pro because he was the best cornerback in football. It is not how the NFL looks at the position, because you watch somebody have an historic season. And by the way, recently, when you look at Patrick Robinson, he might have been the best slot cornerback in football when the Eagles won Super Bowl 52. He was out the door the next year.
Yeah, it's true.
Now, that's not going to happen to Cooper DeJean. I'm not trying to say that. But understand, no, stop saying that. It is not harder to find a slot cornerback. It is harder to find a slot cornerback like Cooper DeJean. That's hard.
Yeah, because he was so damn good.
It is not harder in the NFL. In this age, the NFL values a slot corner higher. Stop it. I only go on this little tirade because I got 15 of the same comments. Where are you getting this? Where's the empirical evidence?
I've never thought that. I've never thought that. I don't know where that line of thinking I mean, I get it. People don't want to move Cooper. But just say that. Just say you don't want to move Cooper.
Yeah,
why do you have to say that he's
fine.
more?
That's fine.
Yeah, right.
And I find it so interesting because last year it's like, you got to evolve the offense. You got to evolve the offense. You got to evolve the offense. You're still going to say it this year. You got to evolve the offense. You need new ideas, fresh ideas. You got to bring in the Bowling Green head coach. Yada, yada, yada. Kellen Moore. Blah, blah, blah. On defense, no, keep everything exactly the same. Keep everything exactly the same because you had a great season. No evolution needed. None. You can stand still.
Yeah, that's how you die, Johnny Mac. As soon as you start standing still, you're on your way to
Fangio's 66 years old, and that's what defines him, and to a certain extent, Andy Reid, who's also old, and Bill Belichick. They kept evolving, and they keep evolving. But please stop saying that, because Cooper DeJean played well. Who was the NFL Defensive Player of the Year?
Patrick Surtain.
Yeah.
Well, I see your tweet that you're referring to. That tweet blew up. All right, Johnny Mac with a big old tweet yesterday about Cooper DeJean, and I see the comment, John. I see the replies. I can see the anger through the screen.
It's driving me crazy. You're just ill-informed. Now, the fact that the kid had a phenomenal year is you're gauging it on that. Are you gonna? To be honest, the odds of Cooper DeJean having the same year in the slot next year as he did this year are pretty minimal, because that's just the way it works. You have up years, down years, and he was so good, it's going to be tough to get better from a consistency standpoint. But boy, that part just again, you could look at the cornerback salaries. We did that last week, and everybody's going, the kid from San Francisco. Well, yeah, all right, you gave me an outlier. What about the other 20 guys? I don't get the argument. The NFL does not value slot corners more than outside corners. It's an absurd statement.
Do you think there's a chance in the next 5-10 years, maybe less, that, the NFL starts shifting positional pay, where it's like you pay the most valuable guys on your team a little bit more than you would just based on their position like it is now?
No, because I think you're getting more value guys than at GM than personnel guys.
Right.
There's more. And that's where I think Howie beats, because Howie's considered a non-football guy, but now he's been in it so long, he's a football guy. He's been a football guy for a long time. But early in his career, people would look at him. That's how they look at Alec Halaby now. Oh, he's an analytics guy. Well, I've talked to Alec a lot over the past couple of years. That dude does more scouting than he does analytical work, but nobody knows it. They won't believe it, whatever. It's just part of the process, the analytics part of it, and that's how he got his foot in the door. But there's more. Today's the franchise deadline, so the Vikings aren't going to franchise Sam Darnold. Now, there's a lot of people say you should franchise Sam Darnold. You should run it back. They're GMs, and he's a value guy. He ain't franchising him,
right?
Because that's just not how they think.
Cowboys are probably going to end up franchising that defensive tackle, which is funny.
Yeah. So there's more. There's getting to be more and more Kwesi Adofo-Mensahs in the NFL than traditional scouting guys. So, and I'm not saying it's right, but that's why you already have it to the point where, all right, the NFL will pay this position, defensive tackle. They'll pay defensive tackles. The Eagles just won a Super Bowl with their most explosive players, at least, however you want to describe it, at two devalued positions, being their best.
Right.
They're only all pros. Saquon Barkley on offense, Zach Bond on defense. Milton Williams is still getting more money than Zach Bond.
I know. Which is why I tried to explain to people yesterday on the National Football Show when I was on there that they also factor that type of stuff into draft picks, because they need value from draft picks if they pan out, especially when you're paying so many good guys. So if you draft an edge rusher and he plays like Nolan Smith, it's all instantly more valuable than if you draft a linebacker in the first round and they play like an all-pro, because you can find that elsewhere for cheaper money versus an edge rusher. You're getting max value. That's why teams trade up to take quarterbacks, because if the quarterback pans out, they have the best situation in the NFL world. So, value is a big part of it, and it's got to be factored in for sure. Let's get to a couple comments, John. I do think the slot thing you brought up is interesting. Because people look at this defense and they're like, well, look at what happened when Maddox went out and Cooper came in, which I understand, but I mean, it certainly doesn't dispute what you said. Dre comes in. What about Sidney Brown in the slot? He says.
I he played a little bit there as a rookie, and again, they used like 9 slot corners because everything went so poorly. But I mean, you in packages, he can big nickel, as they call it, where you're playing essentially 3 safeties on the field. So I think there's a place where it can be a package, but not consistently. No, not consistent.
I don't see it either. General JD, what's up, brother? Hope you're doing well. Hey, fellas, I know we've been talking a lot about Davis's 5th-year option, but what about Nolan Smith? He should be due soon too, correct? Well, he was the year later with
he's next year.
Next year, right?
Yeah, he's eligible for an extension next year. But the 5th-year option, yes, he'll be May of next year.
It's going to be interesting to see, man. There's a lot of defensive line moves this team is going to have to make in the next couple of years in terms of contracts and paying people. And, I think Jalen Carter's going to reset the market. I think Nolan Smith's going to be due a big bag of money. It's going to be interesting to see how they handle it all. But good stuff, General JD. Appreciate that question. Appreciate everybody in the chat today. Don't forget to hit that like button. All right, it's a Tuesday edition. We're inching closer. John mentioned today is the final day to franchise tag. Now, the Eagles don't play that business because we're a good organization. Eagles are a good organization, so they're probably not going to franchise tag anybody. But that deadline is today. And then we're, 8 days out next Wednesday. Is it next Wednesday, John, that the free agency period kicks off at 4 p.m.?
Well, yeah, March 12th officially,
March
12th. But March 10th is the so-called, it's actually a legal negotiation period.
Right.
It's not
legal
legal,
tampering,
but what everybody calls legal tampering.
Yeah, right.
So you'll hear most of the deals will start to unveil themselves earlier than March during the negotiation period. But so we'll get some news breaking certainly quickly at that time.
You think anything's coming before then, John? The closer and closer we get, man. I don't know, man.
Oh yeah, stuff's happening every day. I mean, you've seen it with Slay here locally, but
will Bond be signed? Because if we get to that Wednesday and Bond's still not under contract,
it's not a good sign if he gets to 4:00 Wednesday. Not a good sign.
Not a good sign. We'll see what happens. I'm going to thank again everybody for being here. Hit that like button. When we come back, we're going to talk a little defensive line. It's a defensive show. We just talked about the secondary. Darius Slay is out right now. What's it look like now moving forward with life after Darius Slay, Cooper DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell? Where do you move? Keely Ringo, Isaiah Rodgers. We talked about all those things. So when we come back, John mentioned something earlier in the show about replenishing that offensive line or defensive line because that's the most important part of the defense in the organization's eyes. So what does that look like? We'll talk about that when we come back here on Birds 365. Before we get to the break, I want to tell you guys about the great people at BetUS. Go and check them out. Use the promo code YouTube150. Go to betus.com.pa. That promo code gives you a 150% sign-up bonus on your very first deposit, and you get 125% on your second and third deposit, all up to $2,000. So deposit less and bet with more at BetUS. Go to betus.com.pa. That's betus.com.pa. And a big thanks to them for sponsoring the show today. They have the fastest payouts in the industry, 24/7 customer support, and they'll even give you your own custom account manager. So again, big thanks to them for sponsoring the show. Go check them out for all your betting needs. That's betus.com. Big thanks to them, and we'll be right back in 3 minutes on Birds 365.
The following is a real testimonial from the father of a young injured victim.
I didn't think she was going to make it.
Major Perry's daughter was the victim of a horrific accident caused by someone else's negligence.
If you don't find the right counselor, law firm that you're looking for, you will get lost in the wilderness.
Badly injured? Call the Fritz and Bianculli Law Firm at 215-458-2222 and find out why they say, "We got this."
Ignite your nights with free live entertainment daily, only at Live Casino and Hotel Philadelphia's Center Bar. 7 days a week, enjoy some of the region's top party bands, performers, and DJs as they take the stage in the heart of the casino action. Great cocktails, live music, and lively moments. It's all happening at Center Bar at Live Casino and Hotel Philadelphia. Visit livecasinophilly.com for more details and the complete list of upcoming events. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Your financial future is on the line. Are you ready for what's next? At Leone & Company Wealth Management, we help young professionals, business owners, and pre-retirees navigate the complexities of building and protecting wealth. For young professionals, we'll help you grow your wealth, plan for your future, and make the most of your hard-earned dollars. For business owners, we provide strategies to protect your company, manage risks, and create a lasting legacy for both your business and personal wealth. For pre-retirees, we'll design a plan to secure your retirement, ensuring you can live comfortably and confidently in your next chapter. Whether you're just starting out, managing a thriving business, or preparing for retirement, we're here to help you take control of your financial future. The first consultation is on us. Get the advice you need without the cost. Let's make your financial vision a reality. Take the next step. Scan the QR code to schedule your free consultation today. And of course, go Birds.
In our hometown, we all look out for each other. We step up to keep our communities going strong. And at Independence Blue Cross, we're here to keep you going strong as the #1 health insurer in the region. No IBX is always looking out for you.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to Birds 365, a Tuesday edition here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. Give me a follow on X at Real Zander and on Instagram at Zander Krause Show. That's my co-host, Johnny Mac, John McMullen, the #1 Eagles beat reporter in town. Give him a follow at JF McMullen here on a Tuesday edition as we inch closer. Today is the franchise tag deadline. It hits at 4 p.m. And as John and I mentioned before the break, 8 days out from free agency kicking off. Will the Birds get a deal done maybe today, tomorrow, the next day, any day before free agency begins? We will see how that plays. Johnny Mac, I want to talk about the defensive line, and I want to give you some stats to start the segment, okay? Because there's a lot of change presumably coming to the defensive line as it stands right now. Eagles defensive line during the playoffs, so 4-game sample size during the playoffs, the time when the team won the Lombardi Trophy and became the champions of the NFL. They had 92 pressures in the playoffs. They had 15 sacks, and they had a 54.4% pass rush win rate. Now, that's pretty damn good, and that's a big part of the reason this team won a Super Bowl, Johnny Mac. A lot of change potentially with Josh Sweat as a free agent, Milton Williams as a free agent, Brandon Graham potentially retiring. Jalen Carter will be back. Nolan Smith probably will be back unless they trade for Myles Garrett maybe, and then Jalix Hunt. How do you see it, man? This defensive line, John, I just gave you those stats. This is one you got to replenish if you want a chance to go and repeat. It's going to be tough to do.
Yeah, it became very clear last season, really early. Probably in the summer, I first said it. The Eagles kind of decided, hey, we're going to pay the offense and figure it out on defense. After watching that defense, maybe it's time to pay the defense and figure it out on offense. It's not going to happen that way. Obviously, it could be right. They have so many entrenched stars, but you can make a strong argument. I mean, I was looking at Slay yesterday because I had to write the story for Sports Illustrated, and I was like, where did he rank in corners last year? And he was 23rd, I believe, of 116. Which, if you look at it from the perspective of there's 64 starting cornerbacks, outside cornerbacks in the NFL, 23 is pretty stinking good from that standpoint. And then I was looking about the Eagles as a whole, their defense. It's insane. Insane. The corners, Cooper, 1 of 116. Number 1. That's why you all think slot is more important. Quinyon, number 8 of 116. as I mentioned, Slay, number 23 at safety. CJ, 18 of 98. Reed, 29 of 98. Linebacker. Zach Bond, obviously, one, two, I think he was 1 or 2. Nakobe Dean was 12th of 84. And then you talk about the defensive guys. Jalen Carter, 18 of 118. Jordan Davis, 20 of 118. I think that shocks people, but in limited opportunities. Moro Ajomo, 22 of 118. Nolan Smith, 27 of 119. He's on the edge. Jalix Hunt, 42 of 119. Brandon Graham, 23 of 119. Bryce Huff, 39 of 119. The insanity, the production of players doing their job in this particular defense. Now,
those are just insane numbers, by the way. I mean, all across the board.
It's insane. I've never seen consistency like it in the modern era. Every position, everywhere.
Who do you credit that? The players, or is that a Fangio thing? Because, man, he's got
all I think the Eagles credit it to Fangio, and Vic would be the first one to credit it to the players. And I think it varies. Obviously, Jalen Carter elevates everybody on that defensive front. The scheme, to a certain extent, elevates everybody in the secondary. Zach Bond, I think, elevated Nakobe Dean a little bit, to be honest. So it depends on the player. It depends on the position. But I think the Eagles' mindset is Vic will figure it out. And, and I didn't mention Milton. Milton's also very high, obviously. Because he's a free agent and he's not on the page I'm looking at. But it's the players are really good. And yes, Vic elevated them. But I do think the Eagles are leaning a little bit too much towards that philosophy of we got to pay the offense and Vic will figure it out on defense.
Right.
I think that's a little bit unfair to Vic.
I do too. I mean, you keep giving him chicken shit. I mean, asking him to make, Yeah,
I don't want to, he's making, and that's, but when you're losing, if you lose, and I don't think they're going to lose Zach Bond. I've been obvious about that, but until
did you hear him doing a Eagles fly yesterday at some event?
I did not. Yeah, I don't think he's going anywhere, but until it happens, we'll see.
I did think that was interesting. I know it's not that important, but he was at an event in Wisconsin where they were honoring him, and he ended it with a Fly Eagles Fly, and he started it. And I'm like, I'm not saying that means that much, but most of the time when a player's a free agent, they'll stop wearing the team logos until they get a deal done and all those things. So
yeah, I don't pay my, as a matter of fact, one of my friends, there was a Max Crosby tweet or something.
He used the eagle emoji in every tweet though. Yeah.
Yeah, but Eagle, what do you think about this? I'm like, yeah, I don't think about it. I don't give a shit. I don't know why he does it. I don't care why he does it. But
he uses that in everything.
Yeah, same with that. I mean, look, he just won the Super Bowl. He's very proud of winning the Super Bowl. He said, but if somebody else wants to give him $25 million, guess what? He's going to go play somewhere else. Right. But I do think he's going to be back. All that said, and but typically, and that's what I said about the Eagles at the beginning of this. Their foundational philosophy is to pay Milton Williams. Basically, that's what they do.
Yeah, we talked about this a week ago, where it's it just seems weird that they'd pay the linebacker and not the defensive lineman that they drafted with the third round pick.
And, if you want to play devil's advocate to that, you say to yourself, well, that has worked out pretty well for the Eagles over a long period of time, that philosophy. Should you change that philosophy? That's a legitimate debate you can have. And that's a player that I would keep, but I get the long-term aspect of it. I always also thinking about Jalen Carter and what he's going to have to pay Jalen Carter. And can you, is Moro Ajomo, so much of it has to do with evaluation. Is he ready to take on a bigger role?
I'm sorry, I missed it. You probably said what Moro Ajomo was ranked on that defensive line. because he
Yeah,
played a lot of snaps.
22nd.
Whew. I think based on those and based on, he did get like it's not 100 snaps. He played pretty good amount of time, and he was pretty good in that sample size. So I think they're probably feeling good
He
about
played
that.
more than Jordan Davis.
Yeah. So I think they're probably feeling pretty good about Moro Ijoma.
But that's a big step up to say, 440 is going to turn into 1,000, and you're going
Well,
to
how many snaps did Milton Williams play last year?
690.
So can he get to 690? That's about a 50% increase.
Yeah, he can. Can he do it effectively?
Yeah.
Anybody can if they're
I
healthy.
think he could.
I mean, that the key is not, one of the things with Jalen Carter as a rookie, and he fell off. So people were questioning, all right, can he play the number of snaps that he needs to play? And all of a sudden he's playing 1,067, 1,067, which is pretty good. And if you think about, I've argued since the divisional round game against the Rams, that turned out to be the biggest play of the season. The biggest play of the season, if you look at it in hindsight, Jalen Carter hurrying Matthew Stafford on the third down. The fourth down was good as well, but the third down, there was a slip in coverage. The receiver was wide open, would have caught the ball 7-8 yard line, may have gotten in, may have gotten stopped at the 1 or 2, but you're in deep crap if Jalen Carter doesn't have that pass rush at that moment. And that's late in the game, late in the season, after all these snaps, and he's having his most impactful snaps. So he proved it, but he's a different animal, as they say.
I can't wait to see that contract come in for Jalen Carter. That thing's going to be huge.
Yeah, he's a special player.
Yes, he is.
And and that's part of it too, because you're saying, well, these guys get to play next to Jalen Carter, and Jalen Carter's going to get all the attention. And that's true too. That's very true.
Yeah. Let me ask you something about Jalen Carter. You've been covering him since he came into the league, obviously, the last 2 years. There was a reason that Jalen Carter dropped to 9 in the draft. Let's be real. He was the best player in that draft. He could have went easily top 3, top 5, and went 9 to the Eagles. Has he answered all those pre-draft questions that you think there were out there? I don't know if they were warranted or not. I know he obviously was involved in the accident at the University of Georgia. Again, I've said before, I don't like to indict 17, 8-year-old guys for life based on mistakes they made at that age. But do you think he's answered all of those questions? Like, do you see a consummate professional in Jalen Carter? What can you give us from the inside on how Jalen Carter has developed off the field? I know his on the field play has been tremendous.
Yeah, I mean, from a football standpoint, yeah. I mean, the teams, it's amazing getting to know him. He's very nice kid, which I think surprises people, and because of the narratives or whatever that were probably unfair. That's not to say it wasn't a literal grave mistake, and he should have faced consequences, and he did. And I'm not trying to dismiss that, but again, I he's not out there robbing banks. He's not a convicted constant criminal. He was I always say he was a little bit immature, and most young people are. He's very shy, if anything. He's very humble. Like, I always go back to the Chicago Bears in that draft because they traded down twice and essentially passed him over twice. I get it, not wanting to take him at number 1 in those circumstances. But once they moved down and traded down again because they were gutless, that's the team I like. How do you meet this kid and not get the semblance of what I get?
Right.
That, all right, he's a little bit immature, but he's not a bad person. And I think if you come out and meeting him and think like that, like you have no confidence in your ability to mentor or develop any human being.
Right.
And that's why I ripped the Chicago Bears so hard on that. But I thought he was the most talented player in the draft. Now that was the CJ Stroud draft. So obviously, I had no problem if somebody would have taken CJ number 1. Carolina took Bryce Young. He was a phenomenal prospect at the time. It hasn't worked out. So I don't worry about the corners. And there were some other really good players. Will Anderson, who was a rookie of the year, should have been Jalen, but Will Anderson was the rookie of the year. Devin Witherspoon's turned into a great player already. And Bijan Robinson has obviously turned in. So that was a good draft at the top. But yeah, I still think he's the most talented player in that draft, just from his physical gifts to play his particular position.
Yeah, and we've gotten a chance to see how good of a player he really is here in Philly. Good stuff there. Well, John, with Milton, give me your percentages, all right? Because like you just said, I'm having a hard time believing the Eagles just move on from guys they drafted on the defensive line. But Milton Williams, what's your percentage that he's back versus gone?
80% gone, 20% back.
That's about what I was thinking. I was going to say 25-75. What about Josh Sweat?
90% gone, 10% back.
Oof. So it's looking like both of those guys are going to be gone. I think they are. I think we all thought they were at this point. I think most of us think they are at this point. But again, when you talk about the philosophy of the team, there's one interview we had on JAKIB, John, that I keep thinking about. We had Sal Palantonio on after the Super Bowl, like a week after the Super Bowl. And the first thing he said was, my number one offseason priority is Josh Sweat because you need edge rushers in this league. And I'm thinking about that. And I'm like, boy, are they going to just let him walk? I don't know. But I keep thinking about that and wondering if it's going to surprise us and they're going to sign.
Well, I mean, that's why the Myles Garrett stuff. The Eagles aren't going – I've said this, and I'm firm on this. The Eagles aren't going into the 2025 season with Nolan Smith and Jalix Hunt as their starting edge rushers. I'm guaranteeing that. 100%. That's not what's going to happen. I don't know if they're going to hit the home run and get Myles Garrett. I don't know if they're going to get Max Crosby and his Eagle emojis. They're going to do something in some avenue because the position is of value to them. And for whatever reason, and I think it's a little bit unfair to Josh, but they've always placed this kind of ceiling on him. Maybe it goes back to his horrific high school injury and all that, which he hates when people bring up. But I mean, it's real. And the fact that they made him take less money to come back last year, that very rarely does that work out to the point it worked out already for the Eagles. But then, after he proved himself again, you can't penny pinch anymore. And I just don't see it working out for those two. But the Eagles still value the position, whether it's taking one in the draft, whether it's going for the high profile target. And look,
you mentioned earlier, John, rebuilding that trench. What?
Well, if you get a proven commodity, if you get Myles Garrett, none of it matters. If you get even Max Crosby, none of it matters. They're your guys. They're the centerpiece. All I'm saying is now if they go with the draft, it's a little bit more complicated. You got to develop a player quickly. Maybe what I just said about leaning on Vic too much. But they're not. It's not like they're going to go into next season with Nolan Smith and Jalix Hunt and nothing else. I mean, they value that position too much. And Bryce Huff, which which people would say nothing
I
else.
saw a report that I don't know if it was true or not. John, this time of year, you love this, the Bleacher Report, like shit like that.
Oh
Like,
my God.
there's
Oh,
so
Bleacher
much.
Reports.
I know,
Sure.
and it's I hate to say it, but it's all over Sports Illustrated. Every time I go on there, I'm like,
Oh, I
bombarded.
know it drives me crazy, but you'll never see Ed Kratz's name on it. You'll never see my name on
No,
it.
you won't. But I do get a kick out of it. But I did see someone talking about Eagles are going to try and trade Bryce. I don't think it was a Bleacher Report thing. Actually, I think it was somebody.
Bleacher Report says. Oh, Bleacher Report says. Oh, thanks.
Bleacher Report literally's entire business model is take every team and link them to every possible potential target.
Well, that's unfortunately, Sports. I shouldn't rip my input, but I will because I don't care. They do the same thing as you pointed out. They have a guy to do that, and I'm like, I ain't doing it. So if you want it done, because I'm not lying to people, and bottom line is that certain someone, I will not mention his name, he do 200 stories of people being linked to the Eagles. Exactly 0 of them have come to fruition at this point. The batting average ain't great. It drives me nuts, but it's the world we live in. And guess what, guys? I'm talking to fans out there. It's because you click on that shit.
Yeah, it's true. Any chance Bryce Huff is traded?
I don't think it's likely. You never say never with Howie. If he gets, the big fish, so to speak, he might just want to dump him. But yeah, I don't think it's very likely at all. And it would be later where they would recoup some cap space. So it would, again,
there's no benefit this year, right?
No, there's no, you could do it post June 1st, but you're going to have a bunch of dead money still. And he's been pretty above board and said the book is yet to be written on Bryce Huff. Now, you could say that it's somewhere else or it's here, but I think he's going to get one more chance here, because remember, they want 4 edge rushers in a rotation, and Nolan Smith and Jalix Hunt are going to be 2 of them. Bryce Huff is likely 3, but you need the crown jewel. You need the number 1 guy. That's what they need to get.
Right.
And that's where Miles comes in, or Max Crosby, or somebody like that.
We'll see what they end up doing. John, I'll real quick on a different subject. Good talk there on the defensive line. Last thing I want to get to before we get to Devin Jackson. Devin Jackson is going to join us here in hour number 2, guys. Most of you, if you're Birds 365 fans, will remember Devin from last year. He is a tremendous draft guy, and he's been covering the draft and doing a lot of work for the Philadelphia Inquirer leading up to the draft. So we're going to talk to Devin Jackson coming up soon here on Birds 365. I'll play my own version of Bleacher Report, John.
Oh, here we go.
You can shit it down. That's fine. All right. There's been a tight end that's been linked to a lot of trade talks. A lot of
Bleacher Report, Dallas Goedert, Bleacher Report.
No, not Dallas Goedert. I'm talking about bringing a guy in, Michael Mayer, which makes sense because they drafted Brock Bowers, so it does make sense. But Michael Mayer, he's 23 years old. He turns 24 in July. He's 6'4". He was a former. No, I won't use your rule, but a second round draft pick a couple years ago. So, do you think someone like that could be an option at tight end? Because I do think you're looking at slim pickings in terms of bolstering that tight end room.
Yeah, but I think it's a really good tight end draft, and I think the Eagles are going to draft a tight end, and we'll talk about that with Devin coming up. But I think the Eagles are going to draft a tight end pretty high, whether they trade down from 32 or 64, because I think there'll be somebody relevant even down there. I think one of those first 2 picks is probably going to be a tight end. Now, if not, again, always about contingencies. Then I could see it going in a different direction. The trade market's a big part of that, more this year than next year, because they're going to play them more this year than last year or many years. because they're going to play the compensatory pick game this year in theory. And that means can't sign a big money player and get a compensatory pick for Milton Williams. Can't sign a big money, and you're going to X those out if you do that. So how do you get relevant players? By not signing them the free agent? You trade for them. So I wouldn't say that one's as crazy as some of the ones you see. I don't know what happened to him last year. He didn't play a lot. Now, obviously, Bowers is phenomenal, but I mean, just game-wise, he must have gotten hurt. I don't know what the injury was. I don't know where he is from a health standpoint. I do know he's a very good college player, and he's a two-way tight end. So, those guys are becoming rare. He only played 11 games last year. So, yeah, I don't know what happened to him. But he's still young, good player. I wouldn't have a problem with it. But I think the draft is so deep at that position this year.
Right.
I think, think about last year. I was, Paultano came off and boom, Mekhi Becton showed up a couple days later.
Right. Any tight ends sticking out to you in the draft? A couple I like, but just who you're liking right now?
Well, I think, the old joke, it's a genetics league. So I start with Jason Taylor's kid, Mason Taylor, who is to me
he looked real good.
Yeah, to me he's got everything to be a star. And then the kid from Nebraska, who was a really good Thomas Bedone, who was a really good athlete. I think he's a better athlete than people projected, although he was like the number one high school tight end coming into college. So, he was supposed to be a good player. I don't think the production was there to where it turned into that sort of high school ranking translated to the pro ranking. So, but he's a guy who could really be something as sort of maybe a late day 2, early day 3 pick. I think he's got a lot of upside, even though the production wasn't there. But Mason Taylor, you'd have to take him, if you're trading down from 32, you probably have to take him somewhere early in the second round.
Right. And we'll talk to Devin Jackson coming up next here on Birds 365. Draft expert, does a great job. We had him on last year at the draft, covers it for the Philadelphia Inquirer. We're going to talk to him in a couple of minutes here on Birds 365. I see him in the green room. Devin, we'll get to you in just a second, brother. I'm going to give you guys a quick live read, and then we will get to Devin Jackson next on Birds 365. Before I do that, I want to tell you guys about the great people at BetUS. You can go and check them out now. Use that promo code YouTube150. Gives you 150% sign-up bonus on your very first deposit. Gives you 125% on your second and third deposit, all up to $2,000. So deposit less and bet with more at BetUS. Go to betus.com.pa. That's betus.com.pa. And a big thanks to them for sponsoring the show today. We'll be right back in 3 minutes, everybody, on Birds 365.
The following is a real testimonial from the father of a young injured victim.
I didn't think she was going to make it.
Major Perry's daughter was the victim of a horrific accident caused by someone else's negligence.
If you don't find the right counselor, law firm that you're looking for, you will get lost in the wilderness.
Badly injured? Call the Fritz and Bianculli Law Firm at 215-458-2222 and find out why they say, "We got this."
Ignite your nights with free live entertainment daily, only at Live Casino and Hotel Philadelphia's Center Bar. 7 days a week, enjoy some of the region's top party bands, performers, and DJs as they take the stage in the heart of the casino action. Great cocktails, live music, and lively moments. It's all happening at Center Bar at Live Casino and Hotel Philadelphia. Visit livecasinophilly.com for more details and the complete list of upcoming events. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Your financial future is on the line. Are you ready for what's next? At Leone & Company Wealth Management, we help young professionals, business owners, and pre-retirees navigate the complexities of building and protecting wealth. For young professionals, we'll help you grow your wealth, plan for your future, and make the most of your hard-earned dollars. For business owners, we provide strategies to protect your company, manage risks, and create a lasting legacy for both your business and personal wealth. For pre-retirees, we'll design a plan to secure your retirement, ensuring you can live comfortably and confidently in your next chapter. Whether you're just starting out, managing a thriving business, or preparing for retirement, we're here to help you take control of your financial future. The first consultation is on us. Get the advice you need without the cost. Let's make your financial vision a reality. Take the next step. Scan the QR code to schedule your free consultation today. And of course, go Birds.
In our hometown, we all look out for each other. We step up to keep our communities going strong. And at Independence Blue Cross, we're here to keep you going strong as the #1 health insurer in the region. No IBX is always looking out for you.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to a Tuesday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. We're joined now by Devin Jackson from the Philadelphia Inquirer. Devin, how you doing this Tuesday morning, man? Thanks for joining the show.
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. Always a pleasure to join you guys, talk some NFL draft. Just coming off the combine and getting ready for free agency. So always a great time of the year to talk some NFL draft and get prepared for what's coming next month.
Yeah, it's good to see you, Devin. I'm excited to have you on because I got to tell you, man, Howie says we're not behind with the Eagles out there. Now he's got like a 30, 45 person staff. I'm behind because of the long season when it comes to the NFL draft, but I've been following your work from Indianapolis. Did a tremendous job. People can follow Devin at @RealD_Jackson on the X platform. Started with the Eagles. I think the depth of this draft looks like it's defensive front players, certainly as one of the top positions. And this is a year where you might lose Milton Williams, you might lose Josh Sweat. And the foundational philosophy of this team has been building up front on both sides of the football. But that means they have to refortify up front. And they're starting at 32nd. So is it realistic to be able to get a starting level player in this draft on the defensive front at number 32 overall, or even trading down a little bit?
Yeah, I think, the first 2 days of the draft, you're going to get a lot of defensive tackle talent. And I think it's an incredibly deep class. I was talking to, a few scouts now at the combine, and there's like 11 or 12 starter grades on interior defensive linemen. That's how good this class is. The edge class is just as good as well. So, picking at 32, obviously you don't typically get, some top end talent, but I think in this class, you're going to get guys that can come in and play a role really well and really early in their career. So I think at 32, and even if you move down a few spots, even even to the 40s, you're going to still get some really, really good defensive linemen that can come in and be a big time contributor.
How do you go ahead, Johnny?
If you're talking pass rusher, give me a couple names that might be in that range of 32 to say 40 that might be of interest to the Eagles.
Yeah, I look at Walter Nolan from Ole Miss. He's kind of a guy that I feel like people are kind of all over the board with. He's a guy that is probably a top 15, top 20 talent in the NFL draft. But he's more of a 3 technique. He's more of a guy that's not a true run stopper. So he's more of a pass rush specialist. So I think he's a guy that, some teams are going to value differently because he's not, a complete player coming out of Ole Miss. So he's a guy that sticks out to me. Omar Norman Lott, the defensive lineman from Tennessee, I think a similar type of player that is really excels as a pass rusher. Still needs to improve as a run defender, but I think he's a guy that, he played a limited amount of snaps at Tennessee. They had a big rotation at Tennessee. So he averaged about 18 to 19 snaps a game. So, I think, obviously he's a little bit of a projection to the NFL, but I think he's a guy that, if you get him an opportunity to play and get a full load of snaps, that production can continue to increase. And then I'll go TJ Sanders, the South Carolina defensive lineman, who the Eagles had a formal interview with at the Combine. He's a guy that had a really good Senior Bowl, showed that ability to not only rush the passer, but has the ability to knife through defenses and, be able to be a run stopper as well. So Sanders played along a very talented defensive lineman defensive line, I should say, that I think is going to have multiple people drafted off that defensive line. And Sanders was a guy that didn't start every game, but he made his impact felt. And I thought down the stretch of the season, he played extremely well, and he's had a really good process so far.
Real quick, you mentioned Tennessee a little bit there because James Pierce is one of the guys I was most interested because I was texting some scouts and, some athletic testing, I think, that surprised a little bit of people. You're talking about a guy who at one point was probably considered to be a potential top 10 pick. I don't think that's going to happen anymore. Did you get a feel for where he was while you were in Indy? Because I was surprised by the lack of explosive numbers when it came to him.
Yeah, I think, there was a little bit of concern and like he is just a very linear athlete. He's not a guy that's a big change of direction guy. And I think you saw that with testing and, he has an excellent first step, excellent, snap timing awareness, ability to really threaten and get offensive tackles on their heels. But I still think, at 21 years old, he's still developing as a player. I still think there's a lot more to be desired as a run defender. So I think, coming into Combine Week, people were looking to see how he would test, how he would handle, doing some of the on-field drills. And, it was kind of an up and down day for him. So I think, he's a guy again, he's another guy to me that the stock is a little bit all over the map with him. Some teams still having that top 15 to 20 range, and some teams have day 2 grades on him. So I think he's another guy that the Eagles at 32 might be looking at to potentially pick, just depending on how everything shakes out and whether or not teams decide to pick him early or not.
Devin, a lot of changes happening in the NFL right now. Obviously, we're getting closer to free agency. The Eagles made a move yesterday in releasing Darius Slay. So strategies will change this time of year. It's hard to project what a team will do at this point, but I do want to ask you about overall draft strategy for the Eagles, especially in those early rounds. Do you expect Howie to prioritize the trenches? I think that makes sense, but you see a guy like Darius Slay released yesterday. You hear names like Malachi Starks, Nick Emenwar, a couple of these other guys in the secondary. Do you think you could see a shift in approach from Howie, or do you expect him to go trenches? Just your thoughts on the Eagles' overall draft strategy in those early rounds.
I think at least for now, I still see them going trenches. I think, if a player like Malachi Starks is there at 32, I do think that is worth considering and taking a closer look at and bringing them in potentially if the value is right. But I always think with Howie Roseman, he's a guy that always sees value in trenches, always sees value in continuing to build up the defensive line. And if you're losing potentially Josh Sweat and Milton Williams, I understand losing Darius Slay is very important. But knowing the Eagles, they feel like their development of their defensive players, especially, is at a good place. So I wouldn't be surprised if they allow like a Keely Ringo to get an opportunity to win a starting job at corner. But I feel like, at defensive line and edge rusher, you never can have too many of them, and they want to continue to kind of rebuild that depth, especially with, Josh Sweat potentially leaving. Brandon Graham might be done in his NFL career. Milton Williams, and then obviously Jordan Davis, his fifth-year option still needs to be decided on at the end of this upcoming season. So I think there's a lot more question marks especially in that defensive line room that I think they want to be able to address in the NFL draft.
Yeah, Devin, one position with the Eagles I think is a little bit underreported, and I'm pretty confident they're going to go get a tight end at some point for a couple of reasons. One is, if you think about 2018, coming off Super Bowl 52, that was the year they drafted Dallas Goedert. They had the 32nd pick. They traded down. They traded back up to get Goddard. Now, you don't have a Lamar Jackson that somebody might want to reach up for it with that fifth-year option with the 32nd pick. So that doesn't fit. But Zach Ertz was like 2 years younger then to what Dallas Goedert is now. And I think the Eagles are very cognizant that they have to start thinking about life after Dallas Goedert. And it's a really deep tight end draft. Mason Taylor is a player I like. I don't know if he'll last early into the second round. They talk about the NFL. It's always a genetics league. He's the son of Jason Taylor. But there's a lot of good tight ends. Same question. If you're in that 32 to 45 range, who are the ones you would like the most for the Eagles?
Yeah, I think Mason Taylor is at the top of the list because you think about the tight end class, Colston Loveland and Tyler Warner will be already gone by the time you get to pick 32. But Mason Taylor is at the top of the list. The Eagles have shown interest in him, going back to the Senior Bowl. They showed interest in him at the Combine. And I think he's a guy that has excellent ability to create run after the catch, be able to threaten teams, and just has natural hands and natural route running ability. So I think he makes a lot of sense. I'll go to Gunnar Helm, the Texas tight end, who I know didn't test great at the Combine because of a sprained ankle, but I think he's a player that's a really smooth player. He compares his game to Dallas Goedert. He says he has a similar body type to Grant Calcaterra. And I think he's a really smooth route runner, reliable player, and can get open over the middle of the field and down the seam. So I really like him and what he brings to the table. You look at Elijah Arroyo, the Miami tight end as well, who is a big-time vertical threat, ability to probably one of the faster tight ends in the NFL draft class. And he had an awesome Senior Bowl week, didn't test at the Combine, but I think he's a player that, can really create separation at the line of scrimmage and down the field, and just has that deep speed that you want working down the seam. So those would be three guys I think in that early second round range that make a lot of sense. But if you're going to wait a little bit longer, I look at Oregon tight end Terrence Ferguson as well as a guy that potentially in round 3 that can make some sense for the Eagles too.
What do you think? Real quick, just follow up on the tight end, because I like this player, the Nebraska kid. Where do you think he might go? Thomas Spadone. I know he was great. I remember him as a high school prospect. He was a big time high school prospect, and then didn't have the production. But when you talk about production, I don't know. There's something I like about that kid. Where do you think he's going to land? Is he a legitimate day 2 guy, or is he going to be a day 3 guy?
I think his medicals might push him to day 3. He had a couple of knee injuries early in his career, and he was a number 1 tight end coming out of the class of 2021 over Brock Bowers. So he's a guy that's extremely talented. Still feels like he has his best football ahead of him. So I think he's a guy that's a day 3 guy that comes in and surpasses expectations, because you can see the talent, you can see the ability to run downfield. He has some smooth ability as a route runner. And he's a guy that I think, is still, trying to develop and still getting that experience of playing. I think he's played like a little over 20 games in his career just because the injuries piled up on him early in his career. But he's a guy that, everyone speaks highly of in that Nebraska, program, and a guy that you could see the traits and could see the ability. He just played in an offense that didn't really prioritize, tight ends and getting them involved in the offense, but still you could see the flashes of his traits. And if you want a guy that you can kind of develop and really hone in as potential future tight end one, I like Thomas Fadone a lot. That he will make a lot of sense in the 4th or 5th round.
Devin, the Eagles are normally always aggressive with trades at the draft. Do you think they could be looking to move up, down, package picks maybe for Myles Garrett? Do you see the Eagles being players in the trade market on draft day?
Yeah, I don't think there will be a dramatic trade up unless there's a guy that's a top 10 prospect falling into the late 20s, early 30s. So I think it's more likely that they trade back and get more picks on day 2 and early day 3. I know they have a couple 5th round picks, but after the 5th round, they don't have any more selection. So I wouldn't be surprised if they, package some picks early in the draft to get some more later. Because I feel like the depth of the class from about 45 to 75 picks, 45 to 75 is about the same value wise. So I won't be surprised if they try to get a few more picks out of that range. I think that's the best part of the draft on day 2. You get a lot of guys that are stacked similarly on teams' boards, and you still have quite a bit of starter level players left as well. So I won't be surprised if they decide to trade back and get some more day 2 picks.
When we're talking about Howie Roseman, Devin, I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the offensive line at some point. I mean, they have the best offensive line in the NFL, but that doesn't mean they won't add somebody, because that's how much they value that group. And I think it's proven to be the right way to build over the past decade or so for the Philadelphia Eagles. Did see that Anthony Belton mentioned he's got a top 30 visit with the Eagles coming up. Joshua Gray, I believe there was some interest from the Eagles. Charles Grant. Anybody stick out as potential Jeff Stoutland? Like, I know the kid from North Dakota State, his versatility. A lot of people have said, boy, Stoutland would like to get his hands on him. Anybody stand out as a Jeff Stoutland type offensive lineman to you?
Yeah, I look at Anthony Belton, first of all, just because he's a guy that, has played primarily tackle at the NFL level. But he's a guy that I kind of look at kind of similar to Mekhi Becton, where, he's a big, strong, powerful guy that, I think he has a little bit of more foot quickness than Becton coming out of Louisville. But I think with Belton, he's a guy that I think could, be a solid tackle, but a really, really good guard, because he plays with kind of that nasty intentions as a run defender and can move players at the line of scrimmage. And so I look at Belton, and I think he's a guy that will make a lot of sense just based on the formula that Jeff Stoutland has worked with this past year. And if Becton does decide to leave, it might make sense to go with Belton in the 2nd or 3rd round to kind of compete for that right guard spot. Obviously, they still have Tyler Steen that they like very much so, but also with Belton, he's a guy that can kick out and play tackle. So I look at him, and then Jonas Savanea, the Arizona right tackle, I think is another guy that makes a lot of sense to kind of play that similar role. He's played both guard and tackle in his career, played right tackle this past year with Arizona. And similarly, I think he's a guy that's a much better run blocker right now than pass protector. But I do think with Savanea, he's a guy that I could see being kind of an heir to Lane Johnson and still being a really good player and a guy that could play guard and term and maybe kick out at tackle later in his career. So those are 2 guys that I think make a lot of sense in kind of that guard tackle mold. We know the Eagles obviously like drafting versatile offensive linemen. I think both of those guys will make a lot of sense.
Devin, I think you're right on the trenches in the early in this draft. But if you go to the later round picks here for the Eagles, I think that maybe could be where they go. Skill position guy, maybe a running back, maybe a wide receiver. Are there any guys, skill position players in those late rounds that you think would be a good fit for the Eagles that they could get good value with?
Yeah, I like Kyle Monangai from Rutgers, the running back. I think he's a guy that's kind of a complete player. He's a big time pass protector on passing downs. He's a guy that isn't a burner, quote unquote, as a running back, but has really good vision, has really good feel for the game to find cutback lanes and be more of a guy that's more of a powerful finisher that runs through contact. And I know Kenneth Gainwell is still around for this year, and obviously they drafted Will Shipley, but I feel like they're kind of missing that backup kind of power guy, a little bit of a bigger back. So I like Kyle Monangai a lot and what he brings to the table, and what he could do at the NFL level. Then receiver wise, I like Isaiah Nayer, the receiver from Nebraska, that was a guy that tested extremely well at the combine, that has that vertical threat ability that can make plays down the field. And I think he can play both in the slot and outside receiver. So I really like what he brings to the table as a receiver, and I can see him being a day 3 pick and bringing him in and potentially compete for some slot receiver snaps.
Hey, Devin, who do you think helped themselves the most in Indy? A lot of people talked about Shamar Stewart. Zander mentioned Emmett Worry a little bit earlier. Did they really help themselves as much as because athletically those are the two guys that kind of tested off the charts? Did you get that kind of vibe that teams were buying into them a little bit more to push them up the board?
I think Worry probably a little bit more than Stewart. I think people figured that Stewart would test really, really well, and I don't think it was a huge surprise in some of the numbers that he put up, at least talking to some people in the league. I will go to offensive lineman. I think Armand Membu, the Missouri tackle, really helped himself. I think, he's a guy that everyone kind of felt like, all right, he can go in the top 20, top 25, but now teams are talking about maybe he's the first tackle off the board when push comes to shove. So, I think he showed that athletic ability, and then he went out there and really, really made a name for himself. So I would look at him as a guy that I think had a big time, performance at the NFL Combine. And then I'll go to JJ Pegasus from Ole Miss, another defensive lineman. He's a guy that stayed after the defensive line drills and did some fullback work because he played a lot of Wildcat quarterback at Ole Miss in short yardage situations. So I think he's a guy that maybe you're looking at, and maybe those short yardage package situations, he can play both sides of the ball.
People love that stuff. We already got that question here. They want guys to play defensive tackle, fullback. I don't know if it translates as much as people talk about it, but it is always interesting when you have a player with that kind of versatility. This draft class as a whole, I think, talking to Daniel Jeremiah, he mentioned it's not the sexiest draft. It generally has to do with the quarterbacks. From your perspective, is there, other than Cam Ward, is there a quarterback with a first-round grade in Devin Jackson's mind? Because I've heard some crazy.
Yeah.
And I think if Sanders, there's still a good chance that Sanders goes top 10. But if he doesn't, and that last team doesn't pick a quarterback, I think you might see the Aaron Rodgers-like fall, and he might fall a little bit more than people expect.
Yeah, to me, it's Ward and Sanders in that first round conversation, and that's really it. I don't really see any other quarterback prospects really doing anything in this process to rise into that conversation. I know there's been a lot of conversation around Jackson Dart, the Ole Miss quarterback, and whether or not he'll go first round. But I think when you look at it and just look at the with the body of work and what they were able to do in college, I just think it's Sanders, Ward, and everyone else. I will say that teams still like Jalen Milroe, the quarterback from Alabama. I don't think he's going to go first round, but I wouldn't be surprised if early in the second round the team took a shot on what he can do. because the skill set is there, the arm talent is there, the rushing ability is there.
The hand size? How did he grow his hands that much?
Yeah, I have no idea. I don't know anything about these measurements and why they differ so much from the Senior Bowl. But yeah, I think Milroe's a guy that the league is still I won't say like super high on, but still willing to bet on his athletic profile.
From the Eagles' perspective, Devin, do you think there's any, whether it's Dart, whether it's Milroe, whether it's the kid from Louisville, anybody who might, you get inklings, they might buy up, they might want that fifth-year option? Because if you have the quarterback, and again, I go back to 2018, where people say, I want to go up to get that fifth-year option because it's a quarterback, but that player doesn't seem to exist this year. Do you think somebody could fall in love with somebody to feel that way, whether it's any of those names you mentioned?
I think Milroe would probably fit that bill the most, because you want to get that extra time to try and develop him and maybe get, maybe in year 2 or year 3, you have something with him. But, I look at Tyler Shuck, he's kind of an older quarterback already.
Yeah.
I think Jackson Dart, I think he's a guy that's closer to, kind of his athletic ceiling. So I think Milroe is really the only guy, if a team really, really liked him and wanted to get an extra year out of him, I think Milroe would make a lot of sense in this particular situation.
Devin, what position groups are the deepest in this draft? Which ones are the weakest? Like, I always am interested in how the draft all plays out, but what groups are the deepest in the draft? And then what are the weakest position groups in this draft as you see it?
Yeah, so I think defensive line, edge rusher, and running backs are the 3 deepest position. I think the running back class is extremely talented, and I think I like it a little bit better than the tight end class, even though the tight end class has a lot of really good names and really good players. I think with the running backs, you got 8, 9 potential starters at the NFL level, and that's just on day 1 and day 2. You can still find some really good gems on day 3 as well. So those are the 3 top classes for me. Then of course the 3 classes that I'd be a little bit worried about, I think is linebacker. I think it's quarterback, and then I think I would go probably the tackle class is not as deep, because I think with the offensive tackle class specifically, there are a lot of guys that play tackle at the NFL level, but probably won't play tackle in the NFL. So I think that class in particular, I think that's going to help boost the interior offensive line class, that a lot of players are potential guards or potential centers at the NFL level. So I would say those are the 3 top classes, and then the three weakest, in my opinion.
Real quick, one more, just follow up real quick. So do you view it, Devin, as like a top heavy draft, or you think there's good depth all throughout, the later rounds?
I think it's a class that probably has 14, 15 first round guys, and then there's just a lot of depth after that. So I would say it's probably more of a depth heavy class. Like, after you get out of those first 20, 25 picks, I think any player after that until like late in the 3rd round, you're getting guys that the teams are going to have kind of all over the board. And there might be a little bit of surprises on who goes late in that first round or who goes early in the 2nd round, and which guys are available and pick 60, 70, and 80.
At @real_Jackson. Make sure you follow Devin on the X platform. Read him at inquirer.com. Does a tremendous job for the Inky covering the NFL draft. We're going to tap into you more than this. I hope you're willing, Devin. Always enjoy catching up with you. And I'll end it. Who's your number 1? Who should go number 1? Should it be Abdul Carter? Should it be Cam Ward? Who should go number 1 overall?
Yeah, I think it should be Abdul Carter. I think he's a player that has been good his entire college career, but first year edge rusher, he was so dominant. Teams had to throw double teams his way. I mean, he played with one arm against Notre Dame and still was causing havoc. So I think he's a guy that's incredibly explosive, a guy that's really hard to defend. I think, whether you kind of move him around the line of scrimmage or have him as a true edge rusher, I think he can have a Micah Parsons level impact at the NFL level. And I think he's a guy that makes your team better. Even if you're a quarterback needy team, like the Titans, like maybe the Giants, the Browns, like he's a guy that can come in and, be an immediate contributor. And I think he has all pro level talent. So I would say Abdul Carter should go top overall, in my opinion, but the NFL, quarterback is always in
Quarterbacks
demand.
get
So
pushed up.
Yeah, they do. All right, Devin, last one for me. Who's the realistic best case scenario pick for the Eagles at their projected spot in round one, which is 32 right now?
I think right now it was Walter Nolan from Ole Miss, just because he can give you that production and that ability that Milton Williams gave you this past year as a pass rusher specifically. And I think the Eagles defensive line is at a place right now where they are okay going into next year and defending the run. And obviously they'll need some more bodies and maybe a sign of veteran presence as well. But I think when you look at Walter Nolan and his strengths and his ability to rush the passer and kind of the infrastructure that the Eagles have along the defensive line, and they can bring him in, can help him develop and continue to become a really good player. I think Clint Hurd is making a case for one of the better defensive line coaches in the NFL at this point, after what he's done the last few years with the Eagles. So I really like Walter Nolan as a fit for the Eagles. I think he makes a lot of sense to kind of replace the defensive line talent. And I just think, he's a perfect fit for what the Eagles are looking for, specifically on passing downs, as a guy that can help push the pocket alongside Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith and everyone else on that defensive line.
Good stuff, Devin Jackson. Devin, we appreciate you joining in today, brother. Great stuff as always, and we'll catch up with you again soon. Great job at the Inquirer, man. We're reading all your work. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys.
All right.
Thanks, Devin.
There's Devin Jackson joining us here on Birds 365. Great stuff there, Johnny Mac. John, we're officially in that draft part of the offseason now where we dive deep
catching up.
That was our first real good conversation on getting deep in the NFL draft here on Birds 365.
And I think, Devin kind of explained how he has the approach he's having, or it seems like he's going to have, and he's willing to lose maybe Josh Sweat and Milt Williams, because this is a better year to replace players like that in the draft. Even at 32, if they stay there, they should be able to get, if they get a player like Walter Nolan, like Devin said, I mean, you could slot him in and be the replacement right away for Milton Williams. And, you're off and running. He's going to be made better than Jalen Carter. He's going to have more Ojomo pushing him.
Yeah.
And you're getting him on a cost-effective rookie deal versus probably overpaying a really good player, but maybe isn't a $20 million a year player. So you can sort of see the strategy.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I was a little surprised he had Nolan there just because I feel like Nolan's going to go higher, but I love that pick, man. I really like Walter Nolan.
Yeah, I mean, that's one guy who, one of the things I laugh at every year when it comes to draft is like, we go through all that. This guy's a first round pick. This guy's a first round pick. Well, always guys Paul, because there's only 32 first round picks. Right. And, last year was a very offensive tinted draft. The first defensive player didn't come off till it was a crazy number. The kid from Indianapolis, I forget, maybe 16, 17.
Yeah, it was late. I remember that. Yeah. Which kind of played in the Eagles' favor. With when they got Quinyon Mitchell at 22, a lot of people projected him to go much higher. A lot of people predicted Tallis Turner to go much higher than he went. So you never know. And there's going to be, I saw Lance Zierlein, however you pronounce his name, from NFL Media. It's always funny because he put out his mock draft, and because I've heard the same things. I've heard, and I asked Devin, if Shedeur Sanders doesn't go 6 or 7 to wherever Las Vegas, he might fall a long way. I've been hearing those things. I've been hearing those things for a couple of weeks now, and Lance kind of put it in his mock draft, and people are killing him. And it's like, all right, you're killing me last year when I said
Jaden Daniels should be number one. That kind of stuff, the narratives get in people's heads and they just can't get off them.
That's so true. And it's such a time where so much possibility exists. So definitely should be more receptive or open to the possibilities there. But interesting stuff. I thought Devin broke it down great. You can tell he's got a good gauge on the draft already here on March 4th. So, and we're going to have another draft guy, and we'll have Ian Cummings on Thursday as well. So a good week to now as we prep for the NFL draft here on Birds 365. Johnny Mack, your final thoughts on the day, man. They released Slay yesterday. We talked really a lot of defense today on the show, a little bit of tight end in there. Your final thoughts on this Tuesday edition of Birds 365?
Yeah, good to get in the draft. We'll get, it'll all start coming to fruition. But as you mentioned, free agency. And that's why these mock drafts, not that they're always not an exercise in futility, because they always are, but they're really an exercise in futility before that first wave of free agency, because you're going to be able to see the strategies of many teams. And once you see their first wave of free agency, like there's a lot of teams you might say need defensive tackle, and they sign a big money defensive tackle. Right. They sign Milton Williams, and then they go, well, then, hey, they're not taking a defensive tackle in the first round anymore. So that first, it all interconnects. And that first wave of free agency will have a large impact on the draft and how teams approach it.
Yeah, I can't wait, man. It's going to be a great offseason. John, last question for you, and I'll make you make a prediction. Will we have another football 24/7 at some point today? Will another move come down in Eagle Land that we will respond to, John?
I don't think so. It's a little bit early still. But you never know. Never know
how it goes in Eagle Land. We'll see how it all plays out. Johnny Mack, great show today, brother. As always, we're cruising right along here in the offseason. It's already March. I woke up on Saturday. I think Saturday was March 1st or Sunday or whatever it was. And I'm like, God dang, it's already March. Man, that month and a half extra, John, of the football season really tips the scales a little bit.
Oh, yeah. I've never been farther behind when it comes to the NFL draft, personally. And I don't know why it wasn't as bad in Super Bowl 52 or Super Bowl 57, but
didn't we picked in like the top 10 that year, didn't we?
Well, it's not about that. It's about just learning the players. For some reason, this season just seemed to go on forever and ever and ever.
It did. I felt it too. And then I don't know. I do think being 32 does change it a little bit, just because, you're talking about 2 picks in the top 64 and you're at the end of each round. It definitely limits your pool a little bit. The Eagles have had a lot of picks in recent years.
Oh yeah. But I'm talking in more of a general sense.
Yeah. Just a general draft.
Getting in for, plus I don't think it is. And as DJ said, it's not the sexiest draft in the world. I don't think there's a lot of splash players in this draft. I really don't. And Devin had 14 or 15. I've heard a little bit less than that, talking to scouts around the league, probably 12 real first round grades. That's not good.
Yeah. No. And Devin had what, 14, he said?
14 or 15.
Yeah. So no, limited there. Johnny Mack, great show today, brother. We will catch you tomorrow on Birds 365. Thanks for doing it today.
Breaking news.
Oh, here we go.
We're just talking about it. So we can do a football 24/7. The Eagles have informed cornerback James Bradberry he will be released when the new league year starts. His agent can speak to other teams in advance, so they're doing James a little bit of a solid.
Nice.
I thought they'd wait, but they waited so long. I guess they don't want to jerk him around any longer. But James Bradberry, so for that person that asked, there's your answer. He's gone.
There you go, Bradberry. I will say this, and I only speak for myself, but I like James Bradberry. I don't have
it's great, dude.
With James Bradberry at all. I know a lot of fans just associate the penalty in Super Bowl 57 with him, and I'm a big fan of James. I like the way he conducts himself. I like the way
he's a pro.
I like the way he answers questions. I just feel as though he's a genuine good dude, and he was a good player here in Philly that a lot of people forget.
Hey, one of the when I said after that Super Bowl, James stood up and took responsibility.
Yeah, he's a consummate professional for sure.
Is a tremendous, you know, Eagles take a bit of a hit though, salary cap wise. Whereas if they would have waited till June 1st, and again, but the strategy, you can only use that designation twice in advance. So you can only use it twice, period. So obviously they have another move in mind they want to keep that involved with. So they're going to lose a little bit of cap space for that. But, you know, Howie kicked that can down the road as far as humanly possible.
Yeah, good stuff there. All right, Johnny Mac, there you go. There's our little breaking news. I would imagine that's all we're going to get for the day. But we got a couple extra minutes out of it on Birds 365. Well done today, John, and we'll catch you tomorrow on Birds 365.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
All right. Appreciate it, Johnny Mac. There's John McMullen joining in on Birds 365. Just a couple of minutes I want to kick around. I got one thing I want to show you guys here on the show I'm going to do, and it's a big thanks to one of our great viewers. You know, we had a great season this year on Birds 365, on the National Football Show, and on JAKIB Sports. We did a lot of giveaways. We did a lot of fun things, I think, to build up our community, if that makes sense. You know, we've had content for a long time. We've done content here on JAKIB for a long time. We've had shows. We've had all sorts of things. But this was the first year, I think, the community aspect of the channel really took the next step forward. And I'm very proud of that. I will say that. It's one of the things I could say I'm very proud of. And, you know, after doing so many fun things, so many fun giveaways, trying to give back to the community as much as I could this year, I feel as though it's been reciprocated, not only by your support, but some of you guys have done some really incredible things for the network, for me, for John, for Cilio, for everybody, for all of us. Now, the one I'm going to speak about specifically right now is for me. Somebody did something for me that was super, super dope. One of our great viewers here. I'm going to give him a shout out here on the show. At 4 Reels Fishing. You probably see him in the chat every once in a while. He's a very hardworking guy, so he can't always chat in, but he's always listening. One of our great viewers here, one of our giveaway winners earlier this year. But he took the time to not only send me something, he built it with his hands from scratch. Okay. This was not something you can build in an hour, in 2 hours, in 3. This was something that he repeatedly put time and effort in on. And then he shipped it across the country, all bubble wrapped up, and it arrived here perfectly. And I'll tell you guys, it wasn't cheap for him to do this. So, and it's not about that. I do appreciate it, but it's not about that. But what he did for me, I mean, I was sitting in my office last night and I was so thankful. I was just like, that is so dope what he did for me. I appreciated it at a level that I think all of you would appreciate how much I appreciated it. So I'm going to show it off right now, what it is that he got me. You can kind of see it down here. All right. And I'm going to plug it in so you can see it. But this is it before the light is plugged on. All right. And this is handmade. You can see he did the wood. He painted the wood. He put the hang here on the back. And it's a Zander Krause show sign that he made me and shipped across the country. Now, I'm getting a little bit of glare from just my lights in the room. But how cool is this thing? I mean, I'm putting this right on the wall. So I've already been thinking about how to change around my studio to get this on the wall. This is my new Zander Krause show logo. And he sent me this. I mean, he made this, guys. This is 100% made. He put all LED lights back here. This is a thing he drilled into the wood that he put back here. So I mean, it's really dope. It's just dope that somebody would do this for me. There it is, plugged in, and I can change these lights. Right now, it's obviously on green. Let me turn off my blur in the background. So right now it's got the LED green, but I can change that to white, blue, any color I want. And I just thought it was so dope, and I really wanted to share it all with you guys because, I mean, it's fucking dope. I can't believe that people do. I mean, I just want you guys to know how much I appreciate each and every one of you because it is cool, man. It's cool to have a community like this. It's cool to be able to have the privilege and the honor to talk to you guys, Eagle fans, every day here on JAKIB. And then when someone, shows that, sends that to me. I mean, that's dude, that's as cool as it gets. You know, it makes me so happy that we've done everything that we did, all the giveaways that we did, all the things that I've tried to do for the channel. And I feel like it came back just completely tenfold with what people do and everything. So when you see him in the chat, I'm not sure if he's watching right now. He's a big watcher of Birds 365. I wanted to give him a big thank you on the show. It's For Reals Fishing. His name is Damien. He's an amazing dude. He won one of our giveaways earlier in the year, and he reached out to me immediately and is like, hey, I want to do something for you. Can I do this? And I took him up on it, and he I'm telling you guys, this wasn't something that he did in a day. All right. This wasn't something that this is a guy that he put time, effort, money, resources into this project. All right. And this is a grown man with a family and kids. So again, I'm super, super, super appreciative of it. Yeah, no, it's For Reals Fishing is his name in here. He's been a member for a bit. For Reals Fishing. I think he has a charter company. It doesn't live in the area, but I'm telling you, man, it was really dope of him to do, and I'm super, super, super appreciative of it. And you know, I'm going to be mixing up my wall back here eventually because I got the JAKIB sign. There he is. There's my boy right there, man. There he is. Yo, For Reals. Thank you, bro. I love you, man. I really do. That's so cool of you to do it. I just showed it off, and I'm super appreciative of that and you doing that, brother. You're a good dude, brother. You're a good dude, and I owe you one, For Reals. Whenever I owe you one. So I will be doing something for For Reals. I don't know exactly what it is yet, but I'm going to do something nice for Reals because it was really dope of him to do that. I really love it. And Zander time today wasn't supposed to exist. I have a lot of stuff going on today. I got to it's off season mode, guys. So I got a big whiteboard in my studio on how I'm improving JAKIB this offseason, what I want to do differently, what we're going to try and do for the season next year, how to improve podcast shows, new shows, shorts, reels, everything. All right, I'm working on it all right now. So I'm very, very busy on working on that. I'm fully in the swing of improving everything and getting everything, ready for another big season here on JAKIB Sports. So I've been doing that, and I wanted to just take this time on Zander time to thank For Reals Fishing for sending me this. Again, I'll show it off. It's got the green light on right now. All right, and this sucker will be going on my wall for sure. All right, this sucker will be going on my wall for sure. So can't thank For Reals Fishing enough. Great dude. And amazing job on this. And again, thank you for your time, your effort, and everything that you do, brother. That is, and I'm telling you, I wish I could express it to you how much it means to me, but it does mean a lot to me. So thank you all. And then I showed you guys some of the other things. I mean, that's why I said I feel like it's come back for tenfold. James, Philly Don's, King James sent me this. Just little things like this. I mean, I love this. My guy Sasha sent John and I the custom JAKIB, wood cutting boards, which were so dope. So really awesome. It really means a lot to me for some of you guys to do that and just go out of your way for me. So I appreciate that. And I'll always try and do what I can to give back to all of you guys as well, because we are family. All right. You guys might not like it. Sometimes you might hate me like you hate your siblings or whoever it is in your family. But at the end of the day, we all love each other. All right. And you might not be ready to admit that, but that's the truth. All right. That's the truth. Even Prince was in here the other day saying I love my Z note. All right. So Prince, who did not want a Z note. All right. He did not want a Z note, but he got one and he appreciated it. All right. So I appreciate that. I appreciate each and every one of you guys. Eagle Nest, Willie, Bird Gang Girl, Q the God, Jason A-Team, For Reals Fishing, Kirsten Carter, Hollywood Hogan. Hollywood, you were driving me crazy today. I mean, Hollywood, let me ask you something. I say to you, I acknowledge what you're saying. And I say, what's the solution? And you say, there's no solution. And then you talk about it for an hour and 10 minutes. I don't know, Hollywood. Maybe we're wired differently. If there's no fucking solution, then move on. We can acknowledge truths and move on from them. All right. But I appreciate you for being in here. Yeah, you are on the shit. Hollywood, you're on my shit take list of the day. All right. All right. You'll take the L for today. Steve Ike, what's up, brother? Yes, you too. As well, A-Team, Wilfredo, KCA Eagle, Rocksteady. Love all you guys. Twiz the Jigga, flexing and stepping. I didn't see. Curtis, you've been on fire. Curtis, you have been on fire on your comments with some of your takes on the Eagles offseason. All right. I think you've done some really good stuff, and I appreciate those. All right. I appreciate those comments as well. Daz, I love you around draft time, Daz. I think you're great on the NFL draft. Daz, you were the first guy who messaged in the chat and said, I love Landon Jackson. And the more I watch tape and film on Landon Jackson, the more I dream of him being an Eagle Green. All right. I love that player. So Daz, we appreciate that, brother. Eagle Nest, appreciate you as well, my man. Matt NG. Yes, Matt NG says, worried about Juergens. Matt NG, I'm not going to lie to you, I am. You know, and I know you work in, I think, physical therapy, if I'm not mistaken, right, Matt? So I don't know, man. I'm not – back injuries scare me, okay? They just do. Back injuries scare me, you know, and I've done the thing before where 300-pound guys just hitting them every play on that back. That makes me nervous. So I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little bit worried about Juergens, but I think you'll have a good idea on what they're going to do or how they feel about Juergens based on what they do. Like you asked, drafting a center. Well, if they do, you know that they're not feeling good about Juergens. If they bring in a significant backup center, you know they're not feeling that good about Juergens. If they don't do anything to address it, you got to think that they feel pretty good that Juergens is going to be all right. So he still played well. He still played at a high level in the Super Bowl, obviously going up against, you know, a good interior in Kansas City with Chris Jones and company. So overall, I think he'll be all right. But again, back surgery makes me a little nervous. All right. Jason A-Team, sorry we missed the super chat, brother. I didn't even realize you sent it. I see it now, though. Is there anyone free agent-wise good for a running back, too? Let's take a look at the list together here before I get out of here. But we'll take a look at the list together, all right, and look at some free agent running back options that we can talk about here on the show. Let me pull up the list, and I'll tell you guys. Free agents, let's go there. Let's go position. Let's go. There we go. All right, let's share this with you guys so you can take a look. All right. Let's take a look at some of these guys. So we got Aaron Jones. All right. You got Najee Harris. I love Aaron Jones. I just don't know. He's probably going to be out of the Eagles' price range. Like most of these guys, remember, they're paying big money to Saquon. So they're probably not going to go down the road of, you know, big money on a running back. It would be a secondary piece. Nick Chubb, I like. I mean, you see the projected contract here, 1 year is $3 million. I mean, that's pretty cheap money right there. And I could see Nick Chubb being a player that would be a good, you know, off-speed running back as compared to Saquon Barkley. I like Nick Chubb a little bit. But again, when you have the best running back in football, and that's really it, by the way, when you have the best running back in football, you're not really looking to limit how many touches he gets, okay? You're not really looking to limit how many touches he gets. And with a guy like even Najee, Aaron, Nick, J.K. Dobbins, like these are guys that I think are limiting his touches. So I think you want a guy, an off-speed guy or a guy that can come in and take some snaps away from Saquon, but you don't want it to be too much. I mean, we got the best running back in football. Like, if he can go, I want him on the field. So it's kind of a tough situation, but I do agree that we need a backup running back, and we'll see what they're going to do. But those are your free agent options, A-Team. I don't know how many of those guys fit. I'm sure there's always going to be other dudes too, where you're looking at, you know, where you're talking about undrafted guys. Like there's running backs everywhere. You know, the Boston Scotts of the world. There's a lot of them. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do there. I know you guys are talking about Bradberry. Yeah, I saw he got released. He's going to get released post June 1. But again, I got love for Bradberry. I don't dislike Bradberry at all. You know, these are human beings. All right. Bradberry had a bad play, which I didn't even think was that bad of a play. And Eagle fans crucified him for it. And he didn't have the greatest season in 23. And I get it, but I've always been thankful for what he contributed. You guys remember back in 22 season, what he did was big for the team. He was a great player on that team. So I've always viewed him as a great guy, great player, consummate professional. And I like guys like that. You don't have to. I get it. You don't have to. I'm not saying you got to, but I like guys like that. I like good professionals. I like, you know, people who get it, if that makes sense. And I view that with James Bradberry as he has that. So I'm a big fan of him, but obviously his time here in Philly was done. And I wish him all the best for sure. I wish him all the best. moving forward. But yes, he did get released. Steph, again, thanks all you guys. Another big thanks to Four Reels Fishing. I mean, look at this fucking thing. That is dope. All right, so another big thanks to Four Reels Fishing. I love it, brother. Thank you so much. I'm going to be revamping the office again. All right, so I got to get this on the wall. This will 100% be going in my backdrop. All right, and many of you guys, if you're listening today, will know where it came from. So big thanks to Four Reels Fishing is our winner of the day. All right, love you, Four Reels. Thank you, brother. And our loser of the day, unfortunately, Hollywood Hogan. All right, the shit list is here. Hogan at the top. The good list is here. Four Reels at the top. All right, that's your day. All right, there's your day today. So well done. Appreciate all you guys. I got to run. Thank you all for the support, for checking in on Birds 365. Don't forget to hit that like button on your way out. Love all you guys. See you next time on Birds 365.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.